What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Unknown Destination, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything travel. I am Justin. That is Andrew, and we are back. And I believe I'm going to go ahead and upload this one right away. So, this is actually the second one in the same week. How crazy is that?
Yeah, quite a bit has happened in the past few days, though, and I think as of right now, it's going to be good to kind of try to do a couple a week if possible.
Yeah, I agree. Might be a little more of a challenge for me, but we will get it done because I am going to be starting another new job. That seems to be a thing that's just coming up on these podcasts.
Yeah, that's it. It's just turning into travel, and also what job did Justin interview for this week?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that just to kind of ease us in because the first job that I interviewed for, I actually went to a meeting this past Wednesday, and they basically described the position, gave all the information, and then said, "Hey, tomorrow we'll contact you to come in for your final interview," which was just going to be like a big group interview where they interviewed everybody in the room by asking like one question because it's a call center, and honestly, I think they're just kind of desperate for people. But Thursday morning, I get this email saying, "Hey, we're not hiring for that position anymore. They decided not to, but we have this other one and it pays $1 more. So come to this meeting at 3." So I get there at 3, and me and 12 other people are sitting in the room for basically 35 minutes, and no one's come to talk to us. Uh, and yeah, somebody messages and it's like, "Oh, hey, sorry she was late. She went to another link because we sent the wrong link out to half of you."
Ah, yeah.
So
First off, I don't like when they do the group interviews like that, where they ask a question, a very generic question, and they're like, "Oh, what do you think about it?" Because after the first person goes, everybody's gonna just kind of go off of that and usually spitball.
see, and then this one, it wasn't even that detailed. It was more, "What's your customer service experience, and do you have anything planned the next 90 days?" And that was it.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
that being said, after everything happened, I did accept the position and started on Monday. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, I'm not going to mention the company name or anything, but it was an experience, as a lot of these virtual interviews have been.
Well, it
So
sounds like
yeah,
they need somebody for HR, so send them my way for more hiring.
yeah, it does seem that way.
Well, yeah. Hopefully everything goes good with that. And we won't be talking next week about job interviews that you've gone to.
And honestly, I give up after if this doesn't if this doesn't pan out. Uh, but it's an important thing to bring up because a lot of you that are listening, or us that are in the travel industry, unemployment's running out basically in 1 or 2 weeks. So it's getting to the point where it's serious, and a lot of us who are in the industry need to find something. Even if that means accepting something part-time or that pays significant, basically half of what we were making while working in travel.
Yeah, I've been looking at some seasonal work myself, possibly with UPS. I live right across from the actual postal service as well. A lot of them are hiring for the seasonal work, just to supplement for until I'm back to my travel job full time. Since I'm still technically working for them, just been furloughed since March. It would be nice to get seasonal work for just maybe a couple months here.
Those were my first two choices, actually, UPS and Amazon. But both of them, there's so many people looking for jobs, and neither one is hiring in my area because they're
Oh
both
yeah.
full. So,
Wow, yeah, that's they luckily in my area they're still hiring, so I'll probably end up putting in if I we have one more meeting before the new year with my current employer, and if everything is still kind of on par for when they think we're going to be going back, then I will probably be reaching out to one of those companies to try to get some seasonal or temp work.
I don't blame you. And that kind of jumps me right into the first thing that I actually have today, and it's about Delta Airlines. As of 2 days ago, they have actually asked more employees to take furloughs because of a new coronavirus spike and a travel slump. So at this point, they'd really held off on furloughing more people, hoping for stimulus from the U.S. government and things like that. But with their revenue down sharply, they're expecting during the fourth quarter to lose $12 million per day.
Wow.
So
That's
yeah, because of that, they're needing to furlough more of their employees.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the silver lining is that they're still with the company, which some companies are still paying for either insurance or like a substantial I guess less amount of income for them. Like they're still giving a partial paycheck even for furlough. I know that my company, I've been fortunate enough where they're doing that, something similar where they're giving, they're paying the employer's benefit half still, and then covering my
Good.
half as well. So been pretty lucky on that account. But that's it. It's funny that you bring up the Delta furlough because of the I guess the spike, as it were, and air travel being down again. It kind of correlates a little bit with what Air Asia's boss went on record saying here within the past couple days about Google. They're basically threatening Google because they're trying to, the way that the CEO Tony Fernandez for Air Asia said the airlines spend a ton of money promoting themselves on Google and Facebook. And it's going to get to a point where they're nickel and diming and outbidding each other, and they're going to outbid each other into the ground, trying to make sure that they are on top of the Google search results. So this is not, he's obviously not the first to highlight the threat that Google poses because of this kind of whoever pays the most gets to be on the front page of their search results. He's went on about saying that they've been making content for other platforms to try to, basically they're doing everything in their power to not spend money on Google and Facebook right now.
Wow.
And he's quoted saying it's really important to have content, and we're developing a lot of that content around the platform. And he actually did say it's all about not spending money on Google and Facebook.
Wow.
So kind of big there, because I'm curious to see what he means by that, by they're not going to be spending money on Google. Because if Air Asia, the AirAsia.com platform that he runs, is, if they're not going to be utilizing Google, I don't think other airlines are going to just, I mean, wouldn't that just make it cheaper for other airlines to, I mean,
Yeah, I don't really understand why you would do that because honestly, Google is going to be the primary advertising for basically any
worldwide.
US or any worldwide company, not even, just airlines, because you have to be at the top of the search engine using your, SEO optimization and stuff. So I I don't know.
That I don't understand how, so, he can pull out, I guess, of Google, but the other airlines, I just feel like you're not going to get everyone on board. And that's one of those things where you're going to have everyone on board to make this work how he wants it to. So
Right.
I don't know. It's just another thing to kind of, I guess, keep our eyes on for travel professionals in the industry is if we do see a trend of maybe a different search, instead of maybe they develop their own search engine where it's not going to be Google, and you can use that specific search engine just for tourism and travel related things. I would be probably all for that, actually, if it was
Yeah.
industry based. I think I could get behind that rather than Google, because I think we all have Googled one thing or another that you're looking for something specific and couldn't find it. It would be kind of nice if there was a Google for just, travel and tourism, where you didn't have to worry about other links populating like other trash.
It would. And I guess that's something that doesn't necessarily exist. Obviously, you have these companies like Kayak that kind of scan all the major discount websites like Priceline, Expedia, and all
Sure.
that. So
Booking.
it's one of those things where, they don't go directly through the airline though. So if the airlines can all get together and make something that's industry based, that would definitely be interesting.
Like a Sabre or like something like that, but everybody was on the same page.
I love that me and you said we for those of you that aren't in the industry, Sabre is basically, it's considered a global distribution system, and basically what that is the airlines pay to put their product in there so travel agents can look it up and sell them, and basically every airline uses it. There's a few exceptions when it comes to low cost carriers, but pretty much everybody else.
Or if you're Southwest and you don't need no mans.
And actually, Southwest is even listed in Sabre now.
That is true.
It's
Yeah.
not their full availability, and it sells kind of weird. If you're in the industry, you know what I mean by that. If you're not, it's not that important. But
Yeah, or if you're not based in the US, it's even more strange.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I just thought that that was an interesting article that I saw there. That that's kind of like a pretty well-known CEO coming out against Google and Facebook for kind of monopolizing the search engine functionality of the travel world.
Oh, it's not
Um,
something I ever really thought about, to be honest, but it
yeah,
makes sense.
it honestly, yeah, it's not something that I had thought about either. That's why I found it very interesting because I never thought of the cost associated to airlines having to represent themselves on the Google platform.
Right. And that's the thing. I think that brings up a little more news. It looks like as of this last year, airlines have seen their direct bookings increase tenfold. So instead of seeing a lot of bookings through things like Google Flights or Expedia, Priceline, whatever site you use, they're seeing a lot more people going directly to their websites. And I think the reason for that is they're offering a lot more discounted fares if you book directly through them because of COVID.
I think I can kind of speculate on that a little bit as well as to why they might be booking direct, and I think it might have to do with customer service actually.
Yeah.
I know a lot of, and I think COVID was a big part of that. When you book through a third party, if your plans go off without a hitch, it's obviously the best choice because you're saving the most money. But when you run into those problems, like people that were traveling abroad during COVID, and all of a sudden you're trying to call Priceline or you're trying to call Expedia, like these third party booking tools that are usually more automated than not. It's not like a true travel agency. You're not getting,
Right.
you're not getting Justin that you've talked to every day for 2 weeks planning your trip or whatever the case may be. I think a lot of people ran into issues with that, and they're still having issues, with refunds and the people that got stuck at the airport and had to buy a ticket. I know someone personally who that happened to, who is still trying to get her money back from American because it was booked through Google Flights. And that's just,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that honestly might be it. That people are tired of dealing with the middleman when it comes to automation, especially. That's, you either want a travel agent or you want to deal with the airline directly.
Yeah, I think the only exception I can say to that is like Expedia, their corporate site is called Agencia. I know a fair amount of people that work for them, and a lot of them have gone over to take those calls on the leisure side, but it's not the same as somebody you work with day to day. If you're calling into a corporate travel agency to talk to Andrew, it probably means you've talked to Andrew, at least 10, 15 times before while booking it, or at the very least, he knows the account and he knows the things that you're able to do and not able to do. Whereas leisure travel, when you're really booking online, essentially most of the time, you're just calling into a call center. I mean, all of us that work in corporate travel are in a call center type environment, but a lot of us have a little bit deeper knowledge than those on the leisure side because the turnover is that on the leisure side is that of a normal call center. You have people coming in over and over again at
Might not have travel experience.
exactly, they're
Yeah.
people that are trained in customer service, but when it comes to knowing the ins and outs of the everyday airline, they have no clue.
Yeah, and I would say that even on the leisure side, it would be more beneficial to have like a real travel agency that you can talk to, Joe Schmo for 2 months prior, and he's the one who's dedicated his time to booking your trip and getting you set up and squared away. So that way, when something does inevitably go wrong on your trip, he's a phone call, a text away, and knows exactly where you're at and what you need without really having to go into details, because that is a huge stressor for people when they're traveling, especially abroad. If you have to keep explaining yourself to someone new, which is what happens with these kind of third party call centers, is you get passed from agent to agent to agent, and you really are just tired of explaining yourself by the second or third one,
Yeah.
especially if it's a lengthy detailed story.
Yeah, and I think that's something interesting too. When you're choosing a travel agent, there's a lot of different people that claim to be travel agents, and there's a lot of different types of travel agents as to what they are. if they have experience in corporate travel, they're probably going to be some of the most knowledgeable people in the industry when it comes to the airlines. But if you're booking a vacation to Disney, you may want someone that's only been doing Disney vacations for the past 20 years. If you're booking a cruise, you want somebody that's worked with cruises. You know, in the corporate world, we don't really deal with booking cruises or Disney vacations that
Right.
often, really, technically ever, unless we're doing it for a friend or something like that.
Or an
And
event, maybe.
right. And that's not to say that we don't in our spare time take the courses and stuff, but let's be honest, the main reason we do that is because if you're a travel agent with Disney World, you get a free ticket every year.
Yeah, I actually haven't utilized much of those, but yeah, I would say that you really want to go with an agent that is knowledgeable in what you're looking for. So,
Yeah.
I might be very knowledgeable at Central and South America, but I have no clue about Asia or something, just for instance. And then, Justin might know everything about Asia. So obviously, if you're trying to plan a trip to Japan, I would send you to him as opposed to it's honestly, if you're talking to a good travel agent and uh they will direct you to someone who if they feel like they know someone that would be better equipped, they're going to send you there.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to point out that when you're choosing a travel agent, ask them if they are a member of IATA or IATAN because there's so many MLM scams that
Oh
disguise
yeah.
themselves as travel agencies.
Yeah, IATA is a big one, for sure, because anyone who works in corporate travel is an IATA member. So you already know that they're pretty knowledgeable, at least about the world. That I would say that's a benefit of a corporate travel agent as opposed to leisure. A lot of leisure travel agents pick a certain destination, like the Caribbean or um, just Africa. They choose a destination and that's their specialty. We're corporate, we kind of have to know everything.
Everywhere. Yeah.
It's just not necessarily, oh well, this is where you can go to. I know a spot where you can go ride an elephant. Like we're not going to know that kind of thing. That's unless we've actually done that.
I was gonna say, I mean, I know where you can go ride an elephant, but
Yeah, I mean, we could probably we can Google with the best of them. So I would say that you're probably pretty safe knowledge wise when you go to a corporate travel agent, especially if you know
that's
what
the
you're
thing.
doing, or if you know where you want to go, or know what you would like to do. We can definitely find that pretty easily.
And I have to say, see, I'm going to sound like I'm full of myself at this point, but it's honestly true. I feel like corporate travel agents have a lot more experience with knowing what to type and where to find things when it comes to Googling and searching for things, just because we do deal with so many different accounts and they need so many different things that you
Have to
kind of
do it on
have
the
to
fly.
learn it all. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Um,
Okay.
I think we can kind of keep going here with. I've got quite a bit on airport airline news, just air
Okay.
travel in general. So I kind of want to switch over to the UK because I know we've been kind of keeping in our eyes on what they've been doing between the vaccine and just because it seems like they're a little bit further ahead of us in terms of where they're at with the pandemic. That whatever they are doing, we are probably going to end up doing. So I like to keep my eyes on there. The quarantine was reduced from 14 to 10 days. So
Wow.
this so it's currently 14 days. Comes into effect Monday the 14th. So this coming Monday, they announced that the changes will be made. Um, Self isolation is essential to reducing the spread as it breaks the chains of transmission. And after reviewing their evidence, they are now confident that I'm just going to read the direct quote here. After reviewing the evidence, we are now confident that we can reduce the number of days that contacts self isolate from 14 days to 10 days. So this,
Hmm.
um, what it means is that if they take a COVID test on their 5th day in the UK and it comes up negative, they can be released from self isolation. So just a quicker turnaround for people that are wanting to travel. Um, They are saying, however, the aviation will only fully recover when the need for quarantine is eliminated on a 4-nation basis. So they're in regards to that, they're talking about the UK as a whole when they can kind of eliminate the need. So that's
Gotcha.
kind of big news. Also, UK Terminal 4 is going to be closed at Heathrow for all of 2021. That is huge. This was just 5 hours ago that this was released. All of this information that I'm giving as well, this is less than 24 to 48 hours old. This is also why I think it's a good idea for us to do 2 episodes a week, because there's so much happening actually, which a couple episodes we said we weren't sure if we were going to have enough information to go on or enough topics.
Changes every day.
Yeah, and I found some pretty great sources for kind of daily up-to-date travel news. So Heathrow, the Terminal 4 is going to be remain closed because of passenger numbers collapsing. So at Heathrow, passenger numbers fell 88% in November.
That's crazy. I see those numbers here, and the 88% sounds high, but when you actually hear the number of passengers in the month, the difference is insane.
Yeah, so 88% fall, and 747,000 travelers passed through the airport. So that's only 12%. Correct me if I'm wrong, of what the numbers should be.
That is how 88 and 12 add up to 100.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if you now I'm no mathematician, but I do have this handy calculator that if we just figure out how many passengers we're supposed to travel through there.
Does the article you're reading not have the actual number?
No.
Oh, it's 6.2 million from last year.
Yep, that's what I got.
Okay, we have different articles, and mine was more detailed, apparently.
Yeah, so this one came out, I think, right when it happened. How old is your news article?
Let me look.
I'm just curious.
It might have just been posted. It's from today. It doesn't have a time stamp.
Oh, okay. Yeah, mine was from this morning. So it's just kind of like a bulleted. So it just says, it just gives me the total of how many passed through the airport.
Yeah. To jump into that a little bit, so to comparing that to other months, in May this year, it was actually even a little bit worse, and by a little I mean a lot. In May of this year, they only had 227,000 passengers through the airport compared to 6.7 million last year. So
Wow.
I don't know exactly what that percentage is, but it's more than an 88% fall. So, they've grown from there back to being at 88%. So that
but it's also holidays.
It is
during the traveling, so they're probably expecting it to be higher. So
yeah.
Actually, I've got more on that too. They as this crisis is continuing, Heathrow's calling for targeted sector-specific government aid, basically to help protect the jobs, help drive their economic recovery. This includes full business rates relief for all UK airports and abandoning the tourist tax. So anybody that doesn't know what a tourist tax is, there are certain countries that it's basically VAT, a VAT tax. Not every country does it. It can be on anything from goods to mailing stuff through the country upon entry, exit. It can be per night stay. If you stay at a hotel and you see an extra VAT tax on there, that's a tourism tax. UK did not have, they had one, but they've raised it significantly. That's going to be taking effect. It just the first tourism tax that they had took effect this year. So very poor timing. January of this year was when it had started, and people are freaking out, rightfully so, because they make a lot of their money on tourism, and they think that the tourism tax is going to cripple their tourism income even more by kind of forcing people to not come and visit, because things are already very expensive in the UK when it comes to traveling. If you've ever been to London, you could pay easily $600 a night for a hotel that the room is, dinky, not real great, and depending on the time of the year, you could be paying upwards of $1,000 a night. And then if you're adding on a 20% VAT tax per night to that, it is very expensive.
Yeah.
They're expecting this move to they're going to lose 2,000 retail jobs at Heathrow alone. Just from
Wow.
the yeah, this is so all basically all the airlines that were in that terminal had to move to other terminals. So Air France, Etihad, KLM, they all moved to Terminal 2. So it just shows how big of a loss that really is for Heathrow.
Yeah, and we talked in a recent episode about how I forgot which airline it was, but they were trying to add service to Heathrow and how talked about how hard it was to get space at Heathrow. So now we're talking about airlines cutting flights so much that they're going to completely eliminate an
I want to
entire
say it was
terminal.
Emirates. I think it was
I think it
Emirates.
was Emirates too. Uh, but yeah, to talk about that, that's just crazy. And as far as that VAT tax, there's a lot of countries that have actually already suspended or added credits for those VAT taxes to increase
Yep.
tourism. Honestly, the list is too long for us to go over every single one because there's literally like there's over 60 places on this list. But just to give some examples, like Greece, starting December 4th, Holiday Islands discounted their VAT rates extended to June 2021. In Germany, they reclaimed an extension and moved it through the holiday of 2021. Uh, Italy, they're just delaying payments. So, it depends on where you are and a lot of the details, what that would be. Some countries, it's actually relates directly to needing tax advice because it comes on your tax returns and things like that. So I don't want to go into that too much for legal reasons. Uh, but that's a big thing that countries are able to do. The UK, obviously, to this point, has kind of been against doing it, but it sounds like they're going to really have to.
Yeah, I just want to. So John Holland Kay, he's the Heathrow chief executive there. He said, went on record saying that next year should be the year of Britain's economic recovery, but recent announcements, such as the tourist tax, could be the final nail in the coffin for struggling businesses, such as restaurants, hotels, and theaters that rely on inbound tourists, as well as for retailers. So, kind of what we had said before, that they're relying so heavily on inbound tourism that if they do keep this tourist tax, they're worried that it's going to scare people away. And I think that's rightfully so. I
Yeah.
personally, I would love to go to Britain, um, but there are other places I can go that don't have a tourist tax as of right now, especially since this is something that's probably going to get repealed at some point. I don't think it's going to be a forever thing. And yeah, I feel like that's their mindset, is that people like me who would like to go there, but also are just world travelers, they're going to choose other places in the world that it's going to be cheaper, especially with everything that has went on this year.
Definitely. Yeah, that's this is also crazy. I'm just sitting here listening to everything that you're saying and thinking about everything I've read and just thinking about how much the industry is changing.
Yeah, and it's you know, it feels like such a rapid change, even though just because it's been changing all year. You think about maybe starting probably March, April for most people when they really started to see things change. But when everything was shut down for, those 3 months where everything was kind of on a tight lockdown, you didn't really feel like anything was changing, but so much was changing behind the scenes that we're kind of starting, all that's coming to light and coming to fruition, that we've just been kind of waiting for on bated breath, that waiting to see where everything kind of shakes out.
Yeah. Um well, that's all I had that was directly COVID related, but I do have some other airline information stuff. But before I jump into that, do you have anything directly related to pandemic news?
Actually, a couple other things that they're not directly, but I guess it does kind of still pertain to this. There was a update from IATA, which we had talked about before. That they did a recent study based on when people would be okay with returning to travel, and I think that you had actually touched on this
Last episode.
last episode on this, and they've updated it because I guess this is an ongoing kind of, they're trying to perceive the pub or getting the public perception on when things are going to be back to normal. Um, that they're planning on, most people are not planning on traveling for a very long time. It says almost a third of business travelers said that they will not be traveling unless they are forced to for work. As well as there are airlines that have went on record saying that without more aid, they're going to be in trouble because that aid is almost gone. And with 2021, they're expecting that the airlines are still going to lose $33 billion and that they're not going to have, they're not going to be profitable cash wise until 2022. So that's just, that's crazy to me that they're planning that as a company, their upside is 33 billion in the hole for next year. But that's mostly because people are still scared to travel. And with the news that, the vaccine won't be readily available for everyone until, sometime in the middle of next year, which Michigan, I actually just saw on our local news here, the Michigan's getting something around like 68,000 vaccines. There's 10 million people that live in Michigan, and we're getting 68,000 vaccines. Sure that there is so 68,000 out of 10 million is not going to really make people feel more safe. And with those vaccines, those are going to first responders. So when you think about that, like that's going to be the people that are working at the assisted livings, hospitals, our service staff, the police officers, the force, that kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of agree with that things probably won't be back to normal till at least 2022. There will be business travelers probably traveling abroad that are going to be more, they're going to feel more comfortable doing so, because I think testing is going to be a lot different in this coming year for travel. I think there's going to be a lot more business travelers traveling again.
Definitely.
Because of the ease, because of knowing the test results right then, and you'll be able to go to your meeting, or you got to go home and do your meeting from a conference call again.
And that's really where I'm curious to see where the industry goes, because, you can do the meeting on a conference call or on a Zoom. So how many companies are going to switch to that to save money?
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of, and depending on the size of the company too, it might behoove them to just use a free service, as opposed to even having to pay for some kind of premium video software, because they could always just use their phones. A lot of companies still do that. The last thing that I had here was just relating to the holiday season and kind of I guess COVID in general, that Amex did a recent study here and polled people. 1 in 4 people are willing to travel up to 25 hours driving this holiday season to avoid going to the airports or avoid going to highly populated areas. It says half of travelers who are driving the next 3 months would drive 2 to 4 hours at a time, and 25% of those are willing to drive between 10 to 25 hours. So a lot of people kind of still wanting to go out, but they're trying to do it in a safer way. That's still a problem.
Yeah,
because it's not really people, it's not grasping the concept that is self-isolation.
So I have something that kind of ties into that, and I actually have something else about airlines, but we'll wrap back around to it because I think this relates to what you just brought up better.
Okay.
People are willing to travel and drive these far distances, but very popular destination of Lake Tahoe has just announced that they're closed to tourists for the holiday season due to COVID spikes in the areas. So as of December 11th, which is today, for the next 3 weeks, Lake Tahoe will be closed to any tourists coming in. Now, I believe this, the way that they phrased it was that COVID-19 outbreak reaches wildfire levels, which, that's kind of a sad reference. Tahoe's known for having to close because of wildfires. And, they're relating to this as being just as bad to those natural disasters and having to close off the area completely. So if you wanted to get in a car and drive for 25 hours to go to Lake Tahoe, you better turn around.
Yeah, actually, that brings me to a point of, if you are wanting to get out and go to a national park or something, I would definitely call ahead. Take the 2 minutes to call and make sure they're even open to travelers. A lot of places
Sure.
aren't.
Yeah, for sure. That's all I had on that, but I did want to wrap back around to my one last piece of airline news, and it's actually about American Airlines premier reward system. So American Airlines next year is going to be adding an elite rewards option for Platinum Pro and Executive Platinum AA Advantage members. Those things will add, so Platinum Pro members will be given the choice of a reward from a list of options, including 20,000 bonus miles, carbon emissions offsetting, a $200 donation to a choice of partner charities, 6 one-day passes to Admirals Club, or a $200 travel voucher. And then executive members are going to get two choices to a similar list with some enhanced options. Basically, the bonus miles go from 20,000 to 25,000. And then a few of the other things include some consumer electronics things that are on the list. But just some new things for their top level members. I really think this is basically a thank you to those people that were still traveling in 2020 and, kept them afloat the best they could.
Yeah, I actually, that reminds me of something that I don't know where the article is now, but earlier this week I had meant to bring it up on our other episode, but I did see that some airlines. I'll have to try to find the article again so that people can kind of follow it. But there was something that the airlines were going to be extending whatever level of whatever tier level you were at into 2021, regardless on if you traveled or not. And I don't know if that's all airlines or if that's just some of them, but I remember reading an article that there were airlines that were going to be, so if you're a gold flight member, you're still going to be gold next year, even though you didn't hit the requirement for per year. So
Yeah, there's I know there's at least 5 airlines doing it. Basically all of the major US carriers are doing it, a lot of international carriers, and that carries over into the hotel industry too. I know Hilton and Marriott are both also allowing you to keep your status into 2021 whether you were staying in their hotels or not.
okay.
So that is all I have on that. I do have a little bit of car rental news, and it's just with the company Europe Car or
Okay.
Europe Car. I never can say that right. But you know what I mean.
Europa car?
You,
Europe? I know which one you're talking about.
yeah.
Anybody that rents a car in Europe will know what we're talking about.
So they actually formed a long-term partnership with PostNord, which is Denmark's postal service, to lease them 25 electric Sprinter vans to deliver mail in Denmark. And that's kind of keeping them afloat. Also, it looks like this year, off rental wholesale sales volumes. So wholesale sales mean things like that. They're either, you know, partnering with the postal service or partnering with a company where the company's renting a ton of cars and things. It looks for a lot of companies that's actually kept a lot of these rental car companies right at breaking even for the year. So
Wow.
yeah, they've been able to kind of adapt in a way that we haven't. The other thing that they've done wholesale is obviously there's a big used car market when it comes to rental cars, and we talked about Hertz in one of our first episodes selling off a bunch of their cars, but Enterprise, Budget, Avis, they all do that as well, and they've been able to use that to offset the costs that they normally have to face.
Yeah, that's I now that when you think about it, though, it does make sense that rental car companies should be doing just fine in 2020. They're probably going to be doing less than they would be doing normally, but they're probably at least able to stay afloat with a little bit of creative thinking, since people are still going to want to be renting cars to go out and hit those parks that are still open and do the outdoor things and just get away for a little while. I did have a little bit of hotel news here that I thought,
Okay.
since we've been kind of keeping our eye on Airbnb since they've went public
Yeah.
in the stock world, that as of yesterday, they were worth more than the 3 largest hotel chains combined. They closed with a valuation of 86.5 billion, whereas Marriott, Hilton, and Intercontinental were worth 84.1 billion combined.
And as of the market, as of right now, today on December 11th, right around noon Eastern time, it is only increased since then. The current market price is 149.81, so just at about $150 a share.
Hmm.
So you're seeing an increased valuation because the opening was at $146, so it's only going up. Uh, it was at one point at $165 yesterday, but that was basically right up on opening. And honestly, in my opinion, that's probably a little overvalued, but it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few months with Airbnb's stock.
I do find this up kind of uplifting for 2020 of Airbnb. With them going public, I think it was really good timing on them to do so. It also shows that startups can still work in 2020 by having this massive, because if you remember when Airbnb first arrived on the scene and it just exploded overnight, that was just, you know, a team, a guys thinking, hey, why don't we do this? And it kind of promotes that free thinking that maybe people didn't think was still available, because a lot of people think everything's been done. But think of Airbnb, that didn't happen till how many years ago? And
Yeah. And I
why
think
didn't it happen before that?
and that's the thing. There were home share and vacation rental companies in place before that, but they were very focused on being travel companies.
Yep.
Airbnb is a tech startup. They are by no means a travel company as far as the company itself.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what works for them. They have almost no overhead. They have, I believe, only have 1,600 staff members, which for a company with that kind of market value to have only 160 people employed is insane.
Yeah.
Uh, and they have very little risk. It's about people signing up and stuff. As long as they have the right legal forms in place, all they're doing is being a middleman on the internet, and that's working great for them.
Yeah, they have ran into some legal issues and some security issues. Just I witnessed this firsthand actually. Just a quick story about a bachelor party in Chicago. We had rented a house in pretty much a nice area of Chicago, and luckily we got there when we did, because it was double booked. But the people who had booked after us did not book through the actual owners of the property. It was some kind of scam. So it was hilarious, because a second bachelor party showed up to stay in this house with us, and we did not know them. So they ended up having to go to a completely different offsite, just another house basically, that they had not paid for or rented. So as far as I know, hasn't been happening as frequently as it did. This was going on 2 or 3 years ago now. Um, but that was a big issue that they had in with having so few employees, I think, as well. It was very easy for fraud to happen within the company.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because they are just the middleman, they can only do so much. There's
Yeah.
there's all kinds of articles and things about people like hiding cameras and Airbnbs and things like that. So my advice there as a travel agent is just do your due diligence and look around and definitely read the reviews of the property so you know what you're getting yourself into. But when it comes down to it, Airbnb's legal department has done a great job at getting their forms in order and things to kind of cure them of liability from a bunch of those situations. So you know, I don't know what I'm trying to say there. Basically, if you sue Airbnb, don't expect to necessarily win.
Yeah, and I would go into it under the assumption of that you are staying in someone else's house. This is, I
Right.
mean, what would you do? I mean, I would probably have cameras up. That's that if I was renting out my house, because I'd want to know if somebody was stealing something, or if I don't know all the ins and outs of Airbnb, or what it takes to host a house, or what kind of protections they have if something is stolen. I don't know if Airbnb does cover that. So I guess maybe that's something I'll look more into on the legality, since Airbnb seems to keep popping up in the news and it's not going anywhere. So
Yeah.
it'd be good to know for people that are traveling, what to look for when they're if they're trying to book an Airbnb on their own, kind of what to avoid.
Yeah, I would agree. And obviously keep in mind, with the cameras, there's two different things. Obviously, if somebody owns a home, I don't blame them for having a camera like in the main areas, but having a camera in the bedroom pointed at the bed or in the bathroom in one of the air vents or something like that is a whole nother story.
Listen, I don't judge people on where they have their cameras set up in their house. I just think that that people should probably be aware of them going into it.
In the words of PewDiePie, for legal reasons, that's a joke.
Oh Lord. If that's what the podcast has come to of quoting PewDiePie, we are in trouble.
Well, that's where we're at.
All right, well, we're in trouble, but that's okay. Yeah, everybody's along with us on the ride. I was just seeing if there was any other kind of hotel or maybe restaurant news that was kind of catching my eye. I'm not really seeing anything since our last episode here. Just
Yeah.
that outdoor dining is, of course, on the rise with many states mandating that they're closed indoors. A lot more patios are being actually constructed that I'm seeing at these restaurants that are trying to stay open.
Yeah, there's that. And then, interestingly enough, I read an article that said unemployment levels in hotels were actually decreasing. However, my wife is a hotel housekeeper and her schedule's gotten cut down to 2 hours a week. It's normally slow in the winter anyway. We're on the off peak travel season. So those numbers don't add up to me. And I can't help but suspect that it's just because people have run out of unemployment.
Yeah, I did actually see an article. I don't have it pulled up, but I saw an article while I was just kind of reading the news this morning about hotel occupancy being up for the first time in UAE.
Oh, wow.
And granted, they did have a national holiday, so that probably has something to do with it. But I believe it was 77%. It was in the high 70s of total occupancy. So, and it hasn't been that high since I believe it was February, if I'm not mistaken. So that is pretty big, even though it is a holiday. That still means that kind of people are trusting the hotels a little bit, which that's going to be a controversial thing no matter what, because of just how travel is and hotels notoriously are. I think everybody's seen the shows where they go and take the black light to hotel rooms and then come back a week later to see if it's still there. And some hotels are better at cleanliness than others. That's just how and I think that's everywhere in general. A lot of it is how places are managed, how staff is treated, all the above. It takes what's the saying? It takes a village to run an idiot or something. I think that's the saying.
Yeah, I think that's something important to say too. Just because a hotel has a brand name on it doesn't mean much.
Right.
The way that it works is these people pay to use those names. So
franchised.
Right. So say you're staying at a Super 8, just as an example. They don't necessarily have the best reputation, but there's been multiple news organizations that have done studies and they always are consistently it's one of the cleanest properties, which is hilarious to me because they're one of the cheapest. However, I've stayed in a Super 8 that was a complete mess because that franchise owner just didn't care. I will say when you're staying with like a Marriott or a Hilton or a Hyatt, those big brand names, they do have quality assurance teams that go in a lot more often. So you're much more likely to have a nicer hotel because they make sure that their name and their reputation isn't being brought down.
Yeah, I do want to touch on that because I do know from firsthand experience that if you go to one of those big three property names and you have an issue and you actually fill out a customer grievance form or you go online and say, my stay sucked or something, somebody's going to reach out to you and figure out exactly why your stay sucked and what they could have changed. And I've actually seen it firsthand of them sending people into the property to correct it. So they definitely take it more seriously than some of the smaller names. But like Justin's saying, you could go to one property that has the exact same name as another, and one's going to be ran 100 times smoother, cleaner, friendlier than the other one. So
yeah, and when you're coming into those big names too, you're not going to find usually an individual owner that just owns that property. If you're talking about one of those big three brand names, it's going to be an experienced hotel management corporation, whether they're local or not. They're going to have multiple properties. They're going to be multi-million-dollar company, and they're going to have more experience knowing how to take care of it correctly than somebody that might just own that one Super 8 that I'm not going to say exactly where it is in St. Louis County.
Oh boy.
Uh,
Oh boy.
roaches, bed bugs, all fun. And that's the other thing. Bed bugs, if you can keep your luggage in the bathtub at hotels, do it. That's actually a great way to avoid getting bed bugs because they're not able to crawl on the enamel of the tub.
I
So
didn't know that.
yeah, they will never get in your luggage if you store it on or in the bathtub because they can't get in or out of it.
Good to know. I will be keeping my luggage in the bathtub from now on with me while I'm taking baths.
Yeah, that no.
And
You,
then when it's wet, I will call you and say, Justin, you lied to me, you SOB. Everything's soaking wet and my trip is ruined.
just put it on the counter while you're in there because you're still probably fine on honestly on any tile surface. You're significantly safer from bed bugs, and even those major properties, you know, Ritz-Carlton, Doubletree by Hilton and stuff, they're going to have bed bug issues every once in a while just because of how many people are coming in and out.
I have never, knock on wood, I have never had an issue with bed bugs, and I've traveled quite a bit. I think it's one of those things that a lot of people are really scared of. That really, it only happens every once in a while, but when it happens, you hear about it for a long time.
Yeah, I
It's
will
one of those like
say
fear type of travel stories.
at that Super 8 that was a problem, but I left right away anyway. But I've never had that issue with other hotels. My experience and the reason that I know about it happening is more because of being employed at hotels or knowing other employees that, you know, bring it up. But they ratify it right when it happens. They make sure it gets taken care of. And usually they can keep it to just that one room before it spreads as long as they find it right away. So if they're actually doing their job and making sure that the rooms are maintained correctly, it won't become a big problem.
Sure. Well, I just kind of want to. I just saw an article about the Centurion lounges reopening. The so those for those of you that don't know, that's the American Express lounges that they have all reopened except for LaGuardia's with new protections put in place, guidelines to follow, that kind of thing. But just wanted to let people know about that. There's a kind of a new check-in feature that they have, so just be aware of that if you are traveling and you are one of those Centurion Lounge member holders, that you shouldn't have a problem doing that. So if you want, I mean, I if I was traveling right now, I would probably be thankful for a lounge being open rather than having to sit where, there are 50 people waiting for the flight, all kind of crammed together. You can go to
Oh
a lounge and
my.
ha- have a drink. But I just saw that. I just wanted to touch on that real quick. I think that is a pretty good spot though for us to kind of wrap up. Unless you had anything else that you can think of.
I don't have anything else specifically. No, I mean,
Okay.
you know, we covered a lot already. I think we're a
Yeah.
little bit short of where we normally are, but you know, doing two a week, we can fit more information into each one.
Yeah, and with that being said, too, that kind of segues me here. Starting on our next episode, I'm going to start delving a little bit deeper into different destinations that you, the audience, have recommended, requested. I do have a few that I can go off of here. So look for that next week. We'll kind of end that. That'll be kind of our unknown destination, as it were. Um, Maybe how to get there, what you can do while you're there, kind of general cost of going to the location. Now, for doing these, if it is international, I'll probably be going off of just uh, I'll probably pick a gateway in the U.S., not necessarily going off of where the person lives. Try to make it a little bit more broad, um, rather than having somebody fly out of Minot, Dakota, instead of Detroit or LA, San Francisco, so stuff like that. I kind of want to dive into that. So a little bit more leisure side of it to wrap up our episodes.
Right on. I agree with that. I think that's going to be really cool. One other thing that I just wanted to mention is that I uploaded something on my other YouTube channel that I think I'm going to actually move over to the Unknown Destination channel because it's travel related. Or I might rebrand the other YouTube channel. I haven't made that decision yet. But basically, what it is I compared the exact same flights on the exact same dates on 6 different airlines. to show you what the differences were as to what low cost carriers were available, what you would pay if you actually had bags. And obviously, we're not encouraging travel right now, but just to give you an idea, some of the prices that I can find because of COVID-19 for December 11th through the 15th from St. Louis to Denver, I was able to find round trip tickets for $46.20.
Yeah, I think that you had touched on that on the last episode. But yeah, I think that's something that's also something cool that we could do on this podcast is maybe we could do that in real time type of
That'd be cool.
thing. We could just pick some destinations in the US or internationally and just compare them to um, maybe a couple different websites and see what we can do. I would compare it to Sabre, which is our travel agent tool. However, I'm waiting on my new PC to come from my employer because I have been bricked out of mine since it was been inactive for so long.
That's funny.
So look for that next week. Once again, appreciate everybody for listening. And look for the new content coming forward in the upcoming weeks here. Gonna try to keep it at 2 a week, I think, because we can do a little bit less depressing COVID news and add a little bit more fun stuff at the end here, with fun places to visit around the world. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. I'm Andrew, and as always, that is my best co-host ever, Justin. And we'll see you next time on Unknown Destination.
Thanks, guys.
Woo!